What's up, guys? It's Jim with Awaken TCG, bringing you guys finally another locals video. Sorry, this one was a bit delayed, had a bit of a busy weekend, but we are going over it now and our RP Luffy run that we had on a Thursday. Thank you guys for voting for this leader because this is, I would say, my favorite leader in the One Piece card game, like in general. Ever since this leader came out, it's been like the most fun I've had on a leader in this game. I just really enjoy playing large characters and getting to them quickly, and that is basically what this leader is all about. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into the deck list. So with this, we are still running the Straw Hat Pirates package. Therefore, we are running a 4 of the 1 cost Nami Searcher. Not much to touch on there. If you are running a package, you do need to run this Nami Searcher. Searches for a lot of important pieces that we're going to go through in this video, whether it is your late game, your finishers, your defensive stuff, your early ramp. Nami searches for it all in this deck and is very, very nice to see early. So first up here, let's go over our ramp cards. We have 3 of Zoro-Juurou. Now, I know a lot of people do the 4 of on this card, but in a lot of scenarios, I found that this card is a bit too slow against decks that can easily remove this card, say like a Lucci in the early game, are going to get rid of Zoro-Juurou pretty quickly before you can even swing with it sometimes, even RP Law. That being said, with the new bans incoming, I think this might be able to be bumped up to a 4 of, because I don't really think there's a lot of decks that are going to be able to remove it, especially if you just played it on curve on 3. So I think this card gets a lot better after the ban list, but for now, it is still really good at a 3 of. Next up here, getting to our last card that ramps us, is going to be Mr. 2 Bon Clay. So this card is insane. I mean, everybody knows how good this card is. We've dealt with it in RP Law, but it is very good in this deck, especially on the 4 Dawn curve, since you can play this card out, get 1 active, and swing 7. And everybody knows, 7k is the exact number you usually always want to swing with. So ramping and being able to attack 7k is very nice, especially on a 4 Dawn curve. And then if they ever decide to leave this thing on board and play anything over a 6 or 5k stat line, Bon Clay becomes an absolute menace that's getting you another insane swing to their leader that is going to be just more on top of all they have to deal with this deck. And it's going to take that counter out of hand that they're going to desperately need when you go ahead and drop your menaces in the late game. So with that being said, let's get into our 2Ks. Both of them are going to be searchable, but first up here we have Fra-Nosuke. Fra-Nosuke is that OP07 card, pretty much never gets played in this deck. Reserved for a 2K, however, there are a lot of situations where your opponent only has 1 blocker and no life, and they removed everything on your board. So if you do not have an unblockable event, Fra-Nosuke is pretty much your best bet to go for game there, as you will just need 2 decently sized swings. Definitely really weak. He is a 5 for 4, but if he's all you got, he's all you got, and you need to go for game with him. He is an option if you need it. And next up here, our last 2Ks. We actually only run 8 2Ks in this deck, since as a 6K leader, you don't really need a whole lot of 2Ks. But that is going to be Sanji, the new Sanji included in OP07. Pretty much perfect for this deck, was made for the deck, right? Searchable off Nami, we were already running that. And now with this guy, after we drop our 10 cost Luffy, and then you are on 4 Dawn on your free turn, you will be able to drop him for 3 if you need a blocker. So really, really nice in that specific scenario. That is really the only time I'm playing him out. Other than that, still a great 2K, and sometimes I will play him for 6 if I really need to, but like I said, usually just in that Luffy scenario. So next up here, we were going to talk about a 1 of tech card that I don't know how necessary is anymore, but that is going to be 1 of Nico Robin. So this card is truthfully literally just for Rebecca. Rebecca is a really good card and a very prevalent card in basically every black deck. So this is just that 1 of tech to easily pop Rebecca for 1 Dawn, so we don't have to spend any extra Dawn on dealing with that 0 power blocker. Really, really solid card in the certain situations. However, in other matchups, it is honestly pretty weak. One matchup I do like it in, which we already struggle with, is going to be Green Bonnie, as they can kind of just throw searchers on board early, just search like crazy, and since you don't really have the bodies to attack into it, you can run into a problem. However, with Nico Robin, you can not only pop one, you can swing into the other one on the next turn with this card. So, very, very good card in many matchups. But in others, you know, you can just use it as a 1K. It's really no issue. And next up here, we have a card not a lot of red purple Luffy's run, I think, and that is going to be San-Gorou. So San-Gorou is just a vanilla from OP05 that is a 6/8. 8K power is devastating. Basically, you're really never swinging into this card, especially in the mid game. So all this is just another threat that your opponent is going to have to deal with. Also, making it searchable is really, really good in the mid-game, since in this deck, we honestly don't really have that many good mid-game plays, like around that 4, 5, 6, even sometimes 7 if you don't have 8-drop Kid. In that area, we really don't have a good play sometimes, so San-Gorou kind of fills that niche and is really annoying in a lot of matchups, like especially decks like a Nell. This card can be really good in because they do not like dealing with big bodies like this, especially ones that are as cheap as 6 cost. So really like Sanji for that reason. However, other than that, there is definitely a lot of matchups where you're pretty much never playing this card. But with that being said, let's get into our best finisher in the deck, and that is going to be 10 cost, a Monkey.D.Luffy Gear 5th form from OP05. So this card is fantastic. It is basically your best finisher by a long shot, but it can be very clunky a lot of the times in certain matchups. Like this card is basically dead into an L. An L's already a rough matchup, but this card is terrible because he can actually use leader effect on both of your free turn and your first turn, so it does not feel good there. So I don't like to see a lot of this card. So 2 is where I have it, and surprisingly, I have been seeing it enough. I see it as much as I need it for the most part, and no more, which is where I like it. I would not blame anyone for bumping this up to 3. However, if you were to bump it up to 4, I think that is a little bit too much. I don't think you want to see it that much, because if I'm ever running into a hand with 2 or 3 of this card, you pretty much lost that game, as that's a lot of dead cards in hand that you're really only ever using this once per game. So for that reason, this is a 2 of. It is also searchable off Nami, so if I need to find it, I can usually find it if I'm not already drawing into it. So love this card, favorite card in the deck. Pretty much the reason I like this deck, because this is like my favorite card in the game, and it's really only works in this leader. So love this card, and very, very fun to play. Next up here, let's get into our blockers. We have 2 of 4 cost Trafalgar Law. This card is another card that I don't know if a whole lot of RP Luffy's are running. However, you kind of need it for a few matchups. 2 that I talked about earlier, Bonnie and Enel, are both very rough. This card helps out in those matchups a lot, as they definitely like to get a lot of cards in hand. We can develop a blocker while ripping out cards from hand at the same time. Feels very nice. In the later stages of the game, when you are at 10 Dawn, you can actually do Dawn -1 with this effect. Even if they don't have 7 or more cards in hand, even if they have like 5 cards in hand, I will play this, use its effect, right? Rip nothing from their hand, and then get that 1 Dawn back active. So you can basically count this as a 3/5 blocker in the late game, which is very nice. But let's get into our best blocker in the deck. That is going to be 4 of Queen. This card has been the staple purple blocker since before even OP01, and it is no different in this deck. This card is fantastic, since one of the main issues with this deck, with only 3 life, is we are getting a lot of less cards than every other deck in the game. So Queen is going to allow us to draw into more cards. Also, the cycle is very nice, as there's a lot of hands we can run into which are very clunky and would be an immediate loss if not for a Queen in hand to kind of filter that out and leave us with what we need to have. So with that being said, let's get into the big guys here. We've got 3 of 7 cost Eustass Captain Kid. So this card is pretty great in like every matchup almost. Besides, I'd say Lucci. I don't think this card is as good in Lucci. since it's very removable and it's really not doing a whole lot on the turn you play it. Like, buffing your leader is very nice, but if they just remove it, it's not really great, right? You want the when attacking effect, especially after playing your big things down on 10 Dawn, because you can recycle his Dawn minus with leader effect to get it back active for stuff like Rad Beam. So that's why this guy's so important, and I really, really do like him on the curve of going second from a Bon Clay into next turn we're on 7 Dawn into the Captain Kid. That is probably your best curve in this whole deck, in my opinion. But love seeing this guy, really, really strong. And let's get into our next card. With that being said, is going to be 8 cost. New OP07 Monkey.D.Dragon. This card and RP Luffy were like a match made in heaven. This card is fantastic. Probably my second favorite card to see in this deck. And I love this alt art. Whatever guy draws these, I'm not sure his actual name, but he's done a few cards in this card game before, and every single one is a banger. But let's actually talk about the card itself. So you can play this for, if you're playing this for 8, that means you're always on 9 Dawn, right? Because when you're at 8 Dawn with this leader, you can immediately ramp to 9. So if you play Dragon on 8 Dawn, you can attach 2 to leader and then 1 more, because you have 1 more for 9 Dawn, and you can go 9-9 to leader, which is always going to be very annoying for any opponent, especially if they don't have a blocker, because they're either taking both or they're taking 1 and giving you 3 cards out of hand, and that is if they have 2 2Ks, which a lot of decks don't. Like, a lot of Rob Lucci's are really greedy and they only run 7 or 8 2Ks, which in this matchup is a literal death sentence. And that's why the Rob Lucci matchup, I think, is actually not too bad. Obviously, if they see the nuts, then you never had a chance. But if they do not see enough defense, the matchup is winning. And that's why I like this deck. The only bad matchup I'd say is RP Law. But with that being gone, I think RP Luffy is going to be in a really good spot. But let's get into our next card here, and that's going to be 3 of Edward.Newgate, 9 cost. I really do like this card. Like, the leader and Edward.Newgate just make a whole lot of sense together. Making your leader an 8K is really annoying for any deck to deal with, because it basically just says you're not attacking enemy on the next turn for the most part. And obviously ramping to 8 and then immediately going to 9 with leader sets this up perfectly. And getting a 10K on board is very nice, but he's a bit slow for the deck in a few matchups that I would rather like see a dragon to be able to hit leader. This guy is just kind of a filler spot a lot of the time. Like, he's delaying until you can kind of get your opponent down to a certain amount of life where you can go for game. But he is very, very good nonetheless. With that being said, the next card here is going to be 10 drop Shanks, 3 of. So all of our big guys we're pretty much running 3 of, and that is kind of how I like this deck, because I don't really think any of these cards has a spot over the other. Like, they all have their spots you want to see them. But if I ran 4 of all these cards, we would be in really bad spots and our hands would be absolutely terrible. So this is how I like to run this leader. It feels really nice. But getting back to Shanks, this card is great again in the Enel and the Bonnie matchup. 2 matchups that you are going to auto lose pretty much if you don't see Shanks. Shanks is needed for if they drop a 9 cost Zoro, you can immediately pop it back with a Shanks. If they say in Bonnie drop a 10 drop Doflamingo, you can immediately play this, pop it back. In Enel, if they drop a 10 drop Ace, you can again Shanks, pop that, Yamato, whatever. This is your way to kind of defeat other decks playing big cards while developing a big card of your own to go for your game in the following turn. So definitely bad into lower to the ground decks, as if your opponent's biggest body is like a 6 or 7K, Shanks never feels good. But if they're stalling, he is going to be like your best card to see in the deck, as developing a 12K while dealing with whatever big thing they just played is a fantastic play for this deck. If you do not want to drop a Monkey.D.Luffy and go all in, Shanks is basically a pass and develop a 12K. Really, really good card and a great addition into this deck. Next up here, let's get into our counter cards. We have 2 of Gum-Gum Jet Gatling. This card is needed. As you can see, we have a lot of bricks in this deck, which means those hands are going to need to be converted into counter. So this searchable 0 cost event is very, very nice to see in this deck. And next up here, we have the staple in this deck since its inception. That's going to be a 4 of Radical Beam. So obviously with 3 life, we're going down to 0 or 1 very quickly. So, which means we need the most amount of defense we can with the least amount of investment. So leaving 1 Dawn up is not a huge ask. To get a 4K power counter is really nice. Also, searchable Rad Beam. I don't really think I need to talk a whole lot about this card, as I think people know how good Rad Beam is by now. So, last but not least, we have 2 of Diable Jambe. This card is another complete necessity in this deck. A lot of matchups are going to develop a lot of blockers, and basically what this card is just a complete checkmate card. If you were playing against this deck, you cannot go down to 0. If you ever go down to 0, this card says I'm swinging 15 unblockable with lead. You know, God forbid I have a 10-drop Monkey.D.Luffy on board to swing even more. And it just creates checkmate situations that your opponent has no way to get around, and that is why basically the game plan with this deck is you hit face over and over and over again until you get them down to where you need them, and then you finish them off with Dragon, Luffy, you know, whatever you need to do. So with that being said, guys, that was a lot of talking. Sorry about that. Definitely talked about this deck for a little longer than I wanted to, but let's go ahead and get into our locals gameplay this week. And getting into our first game here, we are going against blue and purple Reiju, a deck people are saying is going to be very good now that RP Law is gone, but good thing for RP Luffy, it is actually a pretty solid matchup for us. So we are going to drop a Nami on 2 Dawn here after he passed on turn 1, so that means no stage in the opener, which is always very good for us. Now on 3 Dawn here, he's actually going to go for the Porsche play. Look at the top 5 off of that Porsche effect. It looks like he sees the chopper, so he's definitely going to grab that one to hand. And let's see if we decide to play out a Vinsmoke here, which it is going to be the 2-drop Reiju. Going to activate that effect, playing the 4-drop from hand. And here it is going to be a draw 3 with leader effect and Reiju effect. So pretty solid turn here. If it weren't for the fact that he was going back to 3 Dawn on the next turn, which means if he even wants to attack leader multiple times, he's going to have to attach pretty much all of his Dawn, and that is why this matchup is actually pretty good, because if you buff leader and Reiju does not have a lot of Dawn to utilize, that means you're in a really good spot. So we're actually going to swing 5, he's going to counter, and then we're going to swing 7, and he's going to take that one and to hand here. And now, as I was saying, on 3 Dawn, there it is. He's just going to have to attach all to leader and swing 8, which we will definitely take as he swings 5 into our Nami. No big deal there. We really did not care about that body on board at the moment. But now on 6 Dawn for us, we're actually just going to go 6k to leader and drop down 6 for a San-Gorou. So this is what I was talking about earlier in the deck list portion. Very, very good card in the mid game, as I do have a queen in hand, but I don't want to use the effect because I want to be on 8 Dawn next turn so I can actually activate my leader effect. So he's going to drop another Porsche. Looks like finding another chopper and then playing out the Vinsmoke Ichiji, using that effect and playing out the 7 cost, minusing San-Gorou to 6. And at this point, with 2 Dawn remaining, you can go 6, 6, 7, which would actually be pretty annoying, but it looks like he's going to go 7, followed by 6, and another 6, which it is going to be for him here. And we're just going to go ahead and counter out of all 3 of those swings. So actually putting on a bit of pressure. Now on 8, we are going to ramp to 9. We will go 8k to lead. You usually do not want to swing a board with this deck, especially if they are 5k or below. So we'll play the Newgate, and we'll swing 8k to lead once again. He's going to take both 8ks there. Maybe not a lot of 2ks in hand, or else I think, especially with Reiju, you always want to counter out of that. So opponent now on 5 at Dawn here. And again, if you want to actually put pressure on my leader, you're going to have to attach a lot of this Dawn this turn, which means you're not playing anything new, and you really aren't even putting that much pressure on. So he's going to go 1 on Ichiji, swinging 8 to 8. We will actually choose to take that, as we don't have anything great to counter out. He will play the Tony Chopper here and another Tony Chopper here, just to actually put himself in a position where he is not dead next turn. If we had a 10 drop, he was probably in a really bad spot, which we actually do. So we're going to go 8k to lead right now, just kind of check the hand. Most likely you're going to block if you did not have the counter last turn, but Looks like he actually does have two 2Ks. No, he actually gives a 2K and two 1Ks. So really good information for us. So we're actually going to, with that knowledge in mind, play the Luffy here after he blocks the Newgate swing with the chopper, and we will go 7 with no 2Ks in hand. He's actually going to have to take this, and taking that is the last thing you want to do against RP Luffy, as going down to 0 is a complete death sentence. So we'll go 6 lead, just try to get some counter out of hand. There is two 1Ks, and then we'll do the Jambe on our 10 cost here and swing 15. And getting to game 2 here, we're going to be going against Charlotte Katakuri himself, which actually is a pretty rough matchup for RP Luffy, as whenever he gets to 10 mom, you are pretty much done with no life and a 10-12 on board. It's just pretty much wraps from there. And if he ever gets a trigger, you are in a really bad spot, especially Beiges or Amaru's in the late game. But we're going to go ahead and take his 9K swing on his first attacking turn after playing a Nami on turn 1. And now on 4 Dawn for us, we actually do not have anything really great to play, so we'll go 7K to lead, and we'll play down the Zoro-Juurou, which can actually not get popped by the Gadatsu, as we have 2 life at this moment in time, so pretty good turn for us. So he's going to swing another 7. These constant 7s are very annoying if you do not have any 2Ks in hand. Thankfully, though, we have the Fra-Nosuke as he plays the pudding down, and then following up with the Charlotte Pero. So I don't really like the Pero here, as 5Ks are not amazing in this matchup. You're always going to have to attach that Dawn, but we're going to swing with Zoro, just get an extra active Dawn here. Going to definitely utilize that for ourselves this turn. We do not have an amazing hand, but we're just going to play the Bon Clay down, ramping ourselves to 8 very early, and then using leader effect, dropping down the Trafalgar Law, and ripping 1 Dawn here, taking a Beige and a 10 cost mom from hand, which is honestly not too bad, as we will go 7K to lead, and he's going to choose to take with thankfully no trigger there. If he ever got something like an early Okiku trigger, we would be in a really, really rough spot for sure. So thankfully, dodging that. He's going to go ahead and go 6K to the Zoro, which is pretty good for us, as he follows it up with an 8K swing at leader. This is always usually going to be, for us, a take or a block, but looks like we are going to decide to take, as he drops down the Kikunojo, which is really good in this matchup, as you do not need any Dawn investment to actually swing into leader. So now on 10 Dawn, we do have the Gear 5th Luffy here, but that is never the play you want to go for right now. We're just going to go ahead, copy the Kiku, and go 7K at lead. Thankfully, he is actually not getting a trigger there, as we play the Newgate and swing 8. He is going to give us 2 2Ks, and we'll pass back to him. So his board is not very threatening. He is actually not even on 10 Dawn yet, so we're in a pretty good spot right now. He's just going to attack into the Bon Clay and play the 7 Mom. We really do have to give that life to him, as going down to 0 is pretty much a death sentence. So he'll follow that up with an 8K swing, and we'll be forced to give him a 2K out of hand here. So thinking about what to do, we have another Newgate if we want to play it, and I think that is exactly what we're going to do. We're going to play the Newgate down, swinging 8 to lead. He is going to take, and then following it up with a 10. He actually put this one to the bottom, and that was a Beige. So thankfully, we dodged the Beige, as it got absolutely no value, but he had no choice other than to take that hit. So really, really good look for us there, because if he was actually able to counter out of the attack, I don't know if we were going to win. So going to play a 7 Mom here. We are going to show confidence, leaving 1 Dawn up and trashing the life. We actually don't have a Rad Beam, so if he were to go for game, the rest on that Charlotte Linlin right there, we would actually lose. We do not have a whole lot of counter at hand, but we are basically betting by leaving 1 Dawn up that he is not going to go for game, especially when we have 1 blocker on board right now. So he's going to choose to go 8 at our leader. We will probably just give him that 1K Robin, as that is our only counter in our entire hand. So we're actually going to block, wanting to avoid an Amaru. So, because if he just went for Amaru off rip there and attacked with the Big Mom, that was game. So rest on the Katakuri here, actually going to go, I think that is 9 to lead. We will give him the 2K Sanji, and he will be passing back to us. So now we do have to go for the game, or we're going to lose. We'll swing 10 as he gets an Amaru trigger, trashing 2 bricks and getting another life. We'll go another 10. Thankfully, that is no trigger from him there, as we drop the 10 cost Luffy. There's really no way to win this match, so going to go 7 to lead, and from there it is just going to be pretty much game there with a 10K swing. And getting into our final match here, we actually have an ST10 showdown between Kid and Luffy, both red-purple leaders from the ST10 starter deck. And a little bit of spoilers, but this is actually a really bad matchup for RP Luffy. I did not know it at the time, but I will definitely come to know it as this game goes on. So he's going to go ahead and swing 7 at our leader. We actually have no 2Ks in hand, so we are forced to take. Now on 4 Dawn, no Bonclays, no Zoros, and no Searchers, which means it's going to be a 10k swing, and he's going to take it down to 4 life. So Kid actually doesn't become a 5k leader on his turn until he gets to 3, so he's actually still a 4k, but he's going to drop the Kid and Killer, swinging 7 already as we were forced to take the first hit. So we do a 0-cost event, and he's going to do Kid leader effect, making him a 7k with that 1 Dawn attached, and we are forced to take that one, down to 1 already. Now, definitely going to need to do our best to get rid of this Kid and Killer. We will go 7 into the Kid and Killer, and he'll give us a 2k and a 1k. And we'll play the Queen 4-5, putting 1 Dawn back, which is never really what you want to do, trashing the Dragon. And I think I have a bit of a brain fart here, because I'm actually going to trash 2 cards from hand right here, instead of just 1 for the Queen effect. So, complete brain fart. Obviously, getting 2 bricks out of hand, it really didn't make a huge difference. But definitely would have been better just to have an extra card in hand. I don't know why I did that, actually. So, going to drop another Kid and Killer, swinging 7. No 2Ks in hand again, so we are forced to take to 0 right now. And now on him once again, going to put 2 on leader and activate leader effect again. So this is going to be an 8k swing. We finally did get a 2k off of that last life there, but this will require a 2k and a 1k. So I'm going to block and then just 2k out of the 7k from the Kid and Killer there. So really rough spot. Double Kid and Killer on board. No blockers, no life, and not a whole lot of counter either. We'll drop another Queen, drawing 2 into our hand, and then trashing 1. Hopefully this time. If I trash 2 again, I actually do not remember doing that. But I'm going to trash the Newgate, and I think, yeah, I'm going to trash the Luffy as well. I'm not sure why why I was thinking trash 2 here. I obviously know Queen is only discard 1, but maybe just trying to get rid of the bricks. I mean, it didn't matter anyways. We're not getting rid of counter, but leaving Kid and Killers on board here is a big problem. So he's going to go ahead and go 10 at lead. We give him a Rad Beam and a 1k. Following it up with another 9 at lead. We have to block this one as he does Kid effect again, swinging 8 at lead right now. And with no 2Ks in hand, we have to give him 3 1Ks with 2 Kid and Killers still on board and 0 life. This is really not a winnable position. He's putting way too much pressure on, so we will do 5-drop Queen effect here. Hopefully finally only trashing 1, which it looks like, yes, we finally do. I'm not sure why I was doing that earlier. But we'll go 8 into the Kid and Killer, and he finally does not have the counter right now. But there is still 1 on the board with 1 blocker and a no life. He is going to play the Dragon down, putting 2 to his leader and getting rush on that Dragon. He will do leader effect, swinging 8 to lead. We'll give him a Rad Beam, counter out of the 7, and block the 9 from the Dragon. So, in a really terrible spot again. We have another Queen in hand, which is actually hilarious. We could have played 4 Queens this game, and that would be it. But we're actually going to play the 10-cost Monkey.D.Luffy, as it is going to draw us an extra card and allow us to swing into this board. So we'll go 7 into the Kid and Killer. He actually has the counter in hand again. And then on our free turn, I'm playing so fast because I pretty much know this game is wraps right now. So just going to swing 9 into Kid and Killer and then 12 into Dragon, leaving 1 Dawn up. Really no point, as he has a whole lot of Dawn right now, and with leader effect. Even Rad Beam plus a 2k would not let us survive, but he's going to just put Salt in the Wound, go Dragon, go 11 to lead, and that is going to be the game. And that is going to be the video, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry about that pretty fast final game there. RP Kid definitely ran us down. And I'm not sure why I was trashing extra cards from hand off of Queen, but it actually did not matter in the end because they were non-counter cards anyway. And it would have been the same result as he could have swung into lead there. But fun games nonetheless. Definitely showed the power of this deck in the first 2 matches. Always love playing RP Luffy, so thank you guys again for voting for him. And also, again, apologies for uploading this one a bit late. But with that being said, thank you guys for watching all the way through the video. If you did enjoy and you are not subscribed already, I would really appreciate it if you did. It does help out a lot. Looking at the poll for the next week, we're actually going to be playing the new Black Starter Deck 14 Luffy deck, the 3D2Y deck, which I'm going to be honest with you guys is not good. Nobody's been talking about the deck pretty much. If you aren't online, you probably didn't even know that the deck came out because no one is talking about it. So with that being said, I'm going to do my best to utilize the deck to the best of my ability and try to get some wins, but no promises. But I'll try to make it a fun video anyway. So look forward to that. Coming up next Saturday. You guys have a great day. This has been Jim with Awaken TCG, and I'm going to head out of here. Peace.